So let me ask you this. Do you consider yourself to be a rebel? In other words, are you one of those people that loves to push boundaries and breaks rules for the sake of breaking them? Or are you a rule follower, someone who loves the tradition and finds a lot of comfort in rules? Now, I'm going to tell you that I consider myself to be a rule follower. In fact, every single personality test that I have ever taken over my life shows me to be a very organized person who loves tradition and finds comfort in having rules and guidelines to follow. Now, before we go any further, let's talk about what are rules? Well, rules really truly are simply shortcuts to making decisions. They actually help us save time. Let me give you an example. When you're driving your car and you come to an intersection and there's this octagonal red sign at the corner, you know that that's a stop sign. You know this because it's a rule. I suppose in this case it's a law, but it's a rule that we follow, that when we see one of those signs, that we stop. We stop our vehicle, we look both ways, and we don't proceed through that intersection until we know that the way is clear. Great example of a rule that we follow every day in our lives. Well, what about some other rules that we might follow? Steve Jobs used to wear black every day. It was his rule. It saved him time because he knew that he didn't have to stand in front of his closet deciding what he was going to wear today. It was his black turtleneck and his jeans. In fact, I have a coworker that I work with who wears particular clothes on particular days. On Mondays, he wears yellow. On Tuesdays, he wears blue. On Wednesdays, he wears white. So you can imagine when he stands in front of his closet on Monday morning, he's not one of those people that open the closet doors and goes, "What do I feel like wearing today?" No, he already knows. He's got his yellow shirt and his dress pants and he's ready to go to work. Time saving, right? Rules are time savers. They're shortcuts to decision makers. Now, these rules that we follow in our daily lives spill over into the decisions we make about food. On Friday nights in my house, it's date night. And for many, many years, the rule was that we would go to our favorite pizza place and order pizza. We knew exactly the kind of pizza that we wanted to order. In fact, we went so often that the staff in the restaurant didn't even bring us menus anymore because they knew that exactly what we were going to order. We ordered the same pizza every single time. Shortcut to decision making. We didn't have to stop and think on Friday night what we were going to eat. And once we got to the restaurant, we didn't have to stop and think about what we were ordering off the menu. There's a whole lot of other food rules that many of us follow. When you go to the movies, do you order popcorn? That's a rule. When you're celebrating something, do you crack open the champagne? That's a rule. When you're sad or feeling down, do you reach for something sweet like chocolate or cookies or candy? That's a rule. I had a friend who discovered after thinking about it that she had a rule every time she left her office to go to a meeting. She would swing through a Tim Hortons, and if you're not Canadian, Tim Hortons is a huge coffee chain. She would swing through the Tim Hortons drive-through and order a tea and an oatmeal cookie every single time. Now, I'm using the word rules, but you might hear or think about habits, or you could instead replace the word rules with traditions. And when do some of our largest food rules or food traditions come into play? Over the holiday season. And we are just about to enter one of the largest holiday seasons celebrated for the most part around the world. Now think about the things that you eat over the holidays. What comes to my mind most of the time is turkey. And when we're eating turkey, what do we have? Well, we have to have stuffing, right? Because that's a rule. And we have to have mashed potatoes with gravy because that's a rule. And in my family, My husband insists that we have to have cranberry sauce with it because that's a rule. And realistically, when we're thinking about that Christmas meal or that holiday meal, once again, because we already know that we're having the turkey and the stuffing and the potatoes and the gravy and the cranberry sauce, we're saving time. Because as a family, we're not sitting down and saying, well, what should we have for our meal today or for this event or for this holiday? No, the question isn't what should we have? The question is who's making it? Whose turn is it this year to cook the turkey? What are some of the other holiday rules that you can think of? I know off the top of my head what comes to mind over the holidays are candy canes, chocolate Santas. They're all over the place in the grocery stores. But what about eggnog, and more particular, rum and eggnog? And I'm not sure if you've ever had that, but in my family, it was a tradition that we had every Christmas. And in fact, you can't buy eggnog for the most part at any other time of the year other than the holiday season because it's a rule that we only have eggnog at Christmas. And then there's always all those special desserts that your grandmother made or Aunt Mary made that you have to have at that holiday dinner. Now, because we're following the rules, right? Because we're following the traditions in these events, we often don't think about what we're eating. And what ends up happening is that we mindlessly eat. And when we mindlessly eat, we tend to overeat. We tend to eat a lot of junk. And we really, for the most part, if you think about it long enough, feel crappy afterwards. Do you feel sleepy after that holiday meal? How many times has Uncle Joe or Grandpa fallen asleep on the couch after having a big meal of turkey and potatoes followed by, apple pie or pumpkin pie or some other, dessert? And if I go back to my date night and our pizza, I can tell you that we would be home from our pizza eating by about 8 o'clock at night on a Friday night, and we would laugh because by 8:30 we were crawling into bed and falling asleep. And we used to say, well, it's because it's Friday and we've had a long week. But when I started to think about my rules and when I started to change my rules, I discovered that I wasn't sleepy on Fridays at 8:30 because I'd had a long week. I was sleepy on Fridays at 8:30 when I indulged in pizza and chicken wings and beer. So when I was following my rules, I discovered that they didn't serve me as well as I thought they were. And when we start to understand the rules that we've put in play, then we start to challenge whether or not they're still good for us. I want to challenge you this holiday season to be a food rebel. I want you to think about some of the things that you put in play as a food rule over this season. And I want you to consider whether those rules are good for your health or not and how they make you feel. So if you're up to it, challenge on.